point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I want to hope gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 420th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey, me, and the amazing Tom Fennell in the flesh.
I'm supposed to say that.
You're supposed to say that. Oh, I don't mind. Okay, let me go back to the beginning there. Somehow I jumped to the Ford F-150. Every day I get news on energy and climate change, and I record what I find, up to 15 articles, at my blog, geoharvey.com. And as I do that, when I do that, I put up the material that Tom and I look at during the week and talk about on Thursdays at the Energy Week show. Our show was starting with news from Thursday, May 20th, and it goes up to Wednesday, May 26th, which was yesterday. And you can find the script that Tom and I use for this both online with a link that will be available at the place where you find the show, or you can download it from the same place where you find the show. The links are available.
Well, some of these are well worth looking at.
Yeah, I think so.
Good articles this week.
We've got some stuff that's kind of amazing. The stuff on the Ford F-150 is kind of amazing.
Well, we will be talking again about the Ford F-150, and it is spectacular.
It is kind of.
This is going to send to establish trends.
Yes, I think so. One thing I want to mention before we really get going is that today in the news, and we're not covering this today, but we will next week. ExxonMobil had a stockholder challenge to its picked people for its board, and the challengers who were challenging on the basis of climate change and carbon footprints and so forth threw two people off the board of ExxonMobil and took those positions for their own people. This is the first time that's happened.
That's interesting,
isn't it? And there's other things that happened too. There was a similar, slightly similar thing that happened at the Chevron board meeting, where they have officially adopted, because of a shareholder kind of attack on the way that they were doing business, they officially adopted carbon emission goals.
So a lot of things are happening behind the scenes.
A lot are, but let's start with this article. I see a Ford F-150 Lightning there. It's towing a helicopter.
Well, it's interesting because it looks like a regular pickup truck.
Sure does. It looks like a
regular pickup truck, and it's not.
Yes, that's right. Here we have an article from.
We'll get to that in a little while, because it is how it's different is very significant.
It is significant. This is an article from Clean Technica, and I'll bet you have a title for it, Tom.
Well, I have one. I don't know if we're going to use it or not, but I'll try it. Ford F-150 Lightning, one big shocker.
Yeah, and not the least of the reason it's a shocker is the price, which is $39,974 to start.
Well,
yes.
If you want wheels, it's $10,000 more.
Wheels. Well, maybe it floats around. I don't know. Tom is joking, everybody. Yes, that's just the base MSRP for the version of the truck with 230 miles of range. But that's what?
Not shabby.
Yeah, that's a shockingly low price for the entry model Ford F-150 Lightning. I did not see a single person. This is a person who wrote the article speaking. I did not see a single person predicting that the F-150 Lightning would come in at such a low price, but there's even more to say about this truck. And by the way, It came out in 4 versions, and we don't even have the price of all 4 versions. But this particular version is a fleet truck price that is nevertheless available to individuals. So I don't know what.
Like I say, if you want wheels, it's $10,000 more.
Tom's kidding.
Well, this is an interesting thing. It's quicker than a Ford F-150 Raptor, which is the regular version of the Ford.
This thing is unbelievably powerful.
4.4 seconds from 0 to 60. That's performance, buddy.
Yeah, that's performance. That's also the higher priced versions. And they go up to very high price indeed. But
we'll talk about this later. It can provide up to 10 kilowatts of backup power.
Yeah.
Power your home or appliance in the event of a blackout.
You'll keep your house going for 3 days, probably. Okay, we should go on to the next article. Here we have a Volocopter, EVTOL.
It's an airplane, isn't it?
It's what?
A neat-looking aeroplane.
It's bizarre, and we're going to have another airplane that looks rather like this a little later on. This looks like it's got 2 jet engines on the side. What it's really got is
it's got well, you can see at the ends of the wings is the vertical engines that take it up and down.
That's right, and then
propel it forward.
Yeah, those engines are not really jets. They're just they're turbines, propellers that are in housings.
Is that what they are?
Yeah, I believe they are. What do you have for a title? This is from Clean Technica.
Volocopter unveils a new 4-seater electric VTOL.
Yeah. To
vertical takeoff and landing.
Yep. This is for connecting suburbs with the city. The German EVTOL startup Volocopter has unveiled the new VoloConnect. It differs from the existing VoloCity in a few ways. While the VoloCity has a range of only 22 miles, the Volocopter will have a range of around 60 miles. Also, the VoloConnect will have 4 seats. So, that's for flying around from the city to the suburbs. So if you want to go
as you just mentioned, it's aimed at connecting suburbs to cities,
right,
rather than providing transport within a city.
So if you're in New York City on Manhattan someplace and you want to go to Hoboken and watch the Hoboken Zephyrs play baseball, you can use one of these things.
Is that what they call a team over there?
No, they don't. It's actually a very famous Twilight Zone episode about, and it has a group of people called the Hoboken Zephyrs, which include a pitcher who strikes people out like mad, and it turns out that he's not a real human being. He's a robot, and he wants a heart, so they give him a heart, and he starts walking people on purpose. Anyway, we should.
This thing will cruise at 110 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Its speed's 155.
Wow.
So they're not playing games here.
No, they're not playing games. I honestly, Tom, we're going to have another EVTOL in a few minutes, and I like it better. So let's go.
We got an interesting picture of a map. Does anybody know what that map is of?
I have no idea. What is it? This also is from Clean Technica. Do you have a title for this?
Yeah, because that'll tell us a little bit about what the map is.
I think it will.
New research, utilities, uneconomic coal users being called out in 25 states.
Yeah.
Red states in that picture.
Right. Coal self-commitment is a practice of running coal plants when cheaper resources are available. The Union of Concerned Scientists found that 25 states have taken up substantial discussion of the practice as an issue in state public utility proceedings.
Now, they're playing some games here.
Well, there's one thing that we should really mention about this, and that is if you look, you'll see nobody in New England is in the red states, the red states being the ones in which this is being discussed.
And this is not red in the traditional sense.
That's right. And the green states include, interestingly enough, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, which Wyoming particularly is very dependent on coal. What that means is they're not talking about it. It doesn't mean that they're not doing the coal self-commitment. It just means they're not talking about it. But in these other states, that means that there are coal plants that are being run when the utilities could get cheaper electricity from renewable energy.
Well,
So
this is what they say about that. 10 years ago, it made sense to turn on a coal plant and leave it on.
yeah,
That is no longer the case.
no longer the case. And you know what that means?
Changed dramatically, and the strategies utilities employ to deliver low-cost energy to consumers must keep up.
Yes, that's right. That also means something else too, and that is baseload power. The whole meaning of the word baseload is that it's
changing.
It's the lowest load you can expect during the course of a year, 10 years, or whatever. And now we're at a point where baseload power is not required anymore. So the coal plants should be shut down. They're too expensive, and we've got other ways of providing power at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Well, it is happening, but it's not happening rapidly.
I think from the point of view of the people who are holding assets that are going to be stranded, it's happening too rapidly.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, we're up.
Well, here we got another picture. Some funny-looking things there.
What, are you talking about the sunset?
Well, I'm talking about those things that are sticking up in the air.
Yeah, those things. I think those are, as I've said before, I think they're party favors that people can wave around to make noise. Okay, this is from Renews, and that is offshore wind turbines that we're looking at. What do you have for a title?
A joint venture unveils a 10-gigawatt North Atlantic offshore play.
10 gigawatts?
This is interesting because it's out in the open ocean. This is not in the North Sea.
Yeah, 10 gigawatts. 10 gigawatts. This is a lot.
Gigawatts is gigawatts.
I guess it is. I wonder if they're gonna tie this with lines that go both to the UK and to Iceland. That would be an interesting thing.
I would be surprised if they didn't, because this is going to be close to Iceland.
Yeah. Okay. Anglo-American company Hecate Independent Power has unveiled plans to build up to 10 gigawatts of fixed and floating offshore wind in the North Atlantic to be connected to the UK grid. HIP said it made applications with a national grid for an initial 4 gigawatts of grid connections. So 4 gigawatts is just starters.
Well, it's in the open ocean off of Iceland.
Yeah.
So it's in a different meteorological catchment area.
Yeah.
And what that means is electricity can be supplied at times when existing British projects are becalmed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a matter of having resources that are all over the place. And the wind is always blowing somewhere, as you know.
Absolutely.
And this particular thing reminds me of a description that I read of the Aleutians. And the person was talking about conditions during the Second World War and said the Aleutians are one of the few places on Earth where you can experience weather patterns that are just fog and high winds that go on for days and days and days. So
it's like a good place to put turbines, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it? Okay, we should go on from there. And we have whoops, what happened? Ah, there we go. We have a picture of Hurricane Sandy.
Yeah, don't we, huh? That was the one that flooded Houston, wasn't it?
Hurricane Sandy? No, Hurricane Sandy was the one that hit New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And it kind of damaged everybody to the south and west of us and to the north. But it didn't do anything like the damage that what was the previous one?
I'm at a loss. I
am too. It seems to me the name starts with an I, but anyway, there was this hurricane was extremely destructive. And what do you have for a title for this, Tom?
Flooding from climate change, increased superstorm Sandy damage by $8 billion.
Yeah, human-caused climate change added $8 billion to the damage inflicted by Superstorm Sandy in 2012. New research published in Nature found the additional flooding attributed to melting glaciers and ice sheets means that 71,000 more people were affected. And you could ask, how do they know this? And actually, it's not difficult to figure it out. They know that the oceans raised, the level of the oceans raised a little bit, and they know how much that is because it can be calculated by the amount of water that was lost from the various ice sheets. And they know that that little bit of ocean level rise had its effect on the number of people who had to move. So there it is.
A little quick takeaway here.
Yeah.
This climate-caused damage alone would have been the fourth most expensive weather-related disaster of, they call it now, last year's record-shattering $22 billion disaster. So this was a pretty big hurt.
This was a big deal, yeah. It wasn't, as big a deal in Brattleboro as some others, but it was.
It could have been.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, we should go on to our next item.
Yeah, we got a picture of a bull.
Yeah.
I've seen that bull, but I haven't seen a little girl.
Well, I've seen pictures of the little girl before, and it's an interesting combination, and it's also very famous.
I've seen the bull up close.
I swear I've seen that bull, not in this location, but somewhere else. I think there's more than one of these things around. I can't think of where it was, though. It might have been on 52nd Street or something like that. But anyway, this, by the way, the caption here says Wall Street because it was referring to Wall Street as the stock exchange. But this particular picture is on Broadway. I was looking at this,
the bull is symbolic of the stock.
Yeah, and the little girl is symbolic of
going up. It's called bully.
Yep. And the little girl is symbolic of defiance, and somebody recently put a Ruth Bader Ginsburg collar on her to kind of emphasize that. So this is from oilprice.com. What do you have for title?
Is the IEA report a tipping point for oil investment?
This is an interesting one coming from oilprice.com. The demise of oil and thermal coal won't come from eco-activism or even directly from renewable energy. It will come when big banks decide to stop financing it, rendering it unbankable. And big financial companies like Goldman Sachs and BlackRock are already doing that before the IEA report. And of course, now, as I mentioned earlier today, the stockholders are infiltrating. I shouldn't say infiltrating, but they're having greater and greater impact on the boards, ExxonMobil and Chevron being two, and also today we had in the news that Shell Oil was ordered by a Dutch court to cut its carbon emissions. So things are changing.
We won't be talking about that this week, will we?
No, we will next week, though. The one of Shell the one of Shell and ExxonMobil will be were today, which is next week. The first things we talk about.
Well, there's a good 2-minute video on it at this link.
Yes.
And I got a couple of notes here.
Okay.
$3 billion in bank funds and loans have gone into renewable projects this year, which is compared with $189 billion to businesses focused on hydrocarbons. So the worm has turned.
Yeah. How much was it again, Tom?
First time in history of modern fossil fuels that such a shift is occurring.
How much was it that went into renewables?
Renewables was $203 billion versus $189 billion to hydrocarbons.
So we're seeing more money being invested in renewables than hydrocarbons.
The worm has turned.
Yep, I'm not terribly surprised.
2019, just for comparison, banks invested $373 billion in fossil fuels, but only 238 billion in clean energy.
Yep. Okay, we should go on to our next item. This is the EVTOL that I was talking about earlier, and this
this is neat.
It is. This item comes from Clean Technica, and it has special importance to people in Brattleboro and elsewhere.
At the picture, you can see the propellers that lift it up and down.
Yeah.
And behind the cabin is a pusher prop that moves it forward.
That's right. What do you have for title for this?
Aliyah 250 electric aircraft.
No, that's the title of the picture. What do you got for a title?
Technology secures $368 million in funding and reaches electric aviation's unicorn status. That doesn't mean anything to me.
You know, the unicorn, I keep seeing the word unicorn popping up, and maybe if I were 22 years old, I'd understand what they're driving at. I don't know what it means, but anyway, let me read the synopsis. The Vermont-based electric aviation startup Beta Technologies has closed a Series A round of funding, bringing it $368 million. The funding round was led by Fidelity Management and Research Company. One investment was Amazon Climate Fund. And I want to say, you know, this is a really interesting article. That plane that you're looking at actually flew across Lake Champlain.
Okay. It would be easy enough for that to do that because Beta is located at Burlington Airport.
That's right. And they took the plane over to New York State and flew it across Lake Champlain. And so, you know,
Beta caters to the logistics. Whoop, we're both talking at once.
That's okay.
Beta caters to the logistics, defense, and medical delivery markets.
Right.
They've already received orders for new 10 aircraft. Well, and this is significant with an option to order 150 more.
Okay. So they've got
Beta stock guy.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd run a company called Beta. It sounds like it's very tentative. Anyway, we should go on, and our next item has a picture of
a key takeaway there. This Aliyah vehicle that you're looking at is capable of carrying a load of 1,500 pounds and has a range of 250 miles.
This is nothing to sneeze at. I was going to say exactly those words. We were going to say them in unison. But we should go on to our next picture. Here is a coal-burning power plant.
A lovely picture of a coal-fired plant in Alaska.
Yeah, it's the only white coal-burning plant I've ever seen a picture of. And, you know, the article isn't really about anything in Alaska. It is about coal-burning plants. But I saw that and I thought, you know, I'm going to use that picture because why not? You know, there is such a thing as a white coal-burning power plant. At least it was white when it was new.
I bet it's not white anymore.
This is, yeah, maybe. This is from the BBC.
G7 ministers agree on new steps against fossil fuels.
This is one of the most important items we've got this week. Let me read the synopsis. G7 environment ministers, and that, by the way, includes John Kerry, who's at cabinet level, agreed to deliver climate targets in line with limiting the rise of global temperatures to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Among other things, they agreed to stop direct funding of coal-fired power stations in poorer nations this year. The G7 is UK, US, Canada, Japan, France, Italy, and Germany.
In this case, they were joined by India, Australia, South Africa, and South Korea. They joined this meeting. And the elephant not in the room was China.
Well, you know, China's got to be brought on board with this, and I think they'd like to be, to tell you the truth, but they've got they've got assets that are getting stranded, and they've got industries that are stranded. They are probably responsible for most coal-burning power plants that are being built.
I think they are.
Indonesia has said it's going to stop building coal-burning power plants as soon as the ones that are under development are finished. They're not going to start any new ones. And Indonesia is the big country outside China that is that has been building coal burning power plants. So we should go on, Tom. We've got a
let's move along. We got a nice picture of a infrastructure.
You know, I'm having a little difficulty hearing you, Tom. Your microphone might be upside down or something.
My microphone is distant from me. Let me go pick it up.
Aha!
Bring it a lot closer.
Okay, here we have an article that
I usually wear it around my neck, and I got it sitting on top of my monitor here.
Well, I can tell you.
Is this better?
This is much better. Too loud, if anything. Okay, this is from The Hill. What do you have for title?
Hold on a second. I'm getting more combobulated here.
More combobulated.
When will America protect itself against EMP, cyber, and ransomware attacks? Very current question.
Very current questions, and it's annoying that it is, because we've been talking about EMP problems for probably 6 or 7 years on this show.
Oh, we just had a big ransomware attack last week.
We did indeed. Protecting critical infrastructure has been a priority for Homeland Security. I don't believe it. I don't believe those people cared about it since it was founded. This says since it was founded. So why is the Colonial Pipeline vulnerable to hackers and the Texas grid vulnerable to ice storms and the critical U.S. infrastructure vulnerable to EMP attacks? Well, it's because people are not doing... Yeah, they're not doing what's right. They're doing what's profitable. Really, that's what it boils down to, I think.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, the article says an extended blackout could result in societal collapse, disease, starvation, and death.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard to...
National preparation could mitigate that damage.
It's going to be really hard for the people who say...
the article ends up...
What'd you say? The article what?
The article ends up by saying that we need another Manhattan Project to quickly protect America's critical infrastructure.
I guess. You know, this has been around for a long time. Tom, you and I have been talking about it for a long time. And, basically...
Well, I've been observing how vulnerable the grid actually is.
Yeah.
I mean, a kid with a slingshot and a lucky shot could put it out of business.
Well, I wouldn't say quite that, but, there have been people who have made the point, aside from you and me. The one thing is, the people who are saving money by not doing anything about this are going to find it very, very difficult to spend that money if the society collapses.
Bingo.
We are up to Sunday, May 23rd.
We'll be walking around in loincloths again.
Yeah, I guess. We are up to Sunday, May 23rd, and we have a picture of power cubes. That's what those red things are.
This is very interesting. Very interesting.
Yes. What do you have for a title?
Power cubes, by the way, there's 2 of them there. Oh, power cubes to store solar energy.
Yeah.
Renewable technology brings power swarming through the world's poorest villages.
I spent a lot of time trying to figure out why the word swarming is used. This particular item is from news.un.org, and they don't really explain what swarming is, but what it looks like. And
they do sort of. It's a name somebody dreamed up. And a swarm grid consists of large, easy to carry, stackable batteries called power cubes that you're looking at there, which are charged by a solar array.
Well,
the power stored in the cubes is fed to buildings via buried cables.
Yeah, this is basically a swarm grid is basically a grid that is made up of just a big number, a swarm of microgrids.
Exactly. It's a pico grid.
It's a pico grid?
That's smaller than a microgrid.
Okay. Basically what happens is these microgrids, each one of which might supply a building or an apartment or, whatever, Each one of these microgrids can be independent, but they are all attached to each other on a swarm grid, which means that if one of them goes a little bit dry on its electricity, the other ones can step in and help out. So that's where we are with that. Okay.
Well, it's a far more cost-effective solution than the options previously available.
Yes.
A traditional mini grid costs around $6,000. The swarm grid works out about $1,200.
That's interesting. Okay, our next item is about solar capacity rooftop solar capacity in Vietnam, and it comes from Clean Technica. And
well, if you look at that graph, a little bit strange on the right end there.
Whoa.
From 2 to 9 gigawatts. 2 to 9 gigawatts.
This is a huge increase in just months.
Absolutely.
And one thing about this bothers me, and I'm going to say it because maybe it doesn't bother anybody else, but I hate it when people make graphs that use yellow as a color, because I find it hard to see, compared to white. If they had thrown a little brown into that color, thrown a little red into it, green, whatever. If they had just anything
other than yellow,
I would have found it very much easier to see. This is from Clean Technica. And do you have a title for the article, Tom?
Vietnam shines as a stunning solar champion as banks shun coal.
Well, the idea of banks shunning coal is important. In Vietnam,
absolutely,
banks are shunning coal, enabling the nation to shine brightly as a solar champion. Vietnam saw a 100-fold increase in solar power over the last 2 years. Wow. And this is according to Bloomberg NEF. In 2020, the only countries that installed more solar power than Vietnam were the United States and China. So Vietnam is just taking off.
Well, the Vietnamese government has realized that coal is simply not reliable anymore.
Yeah.
And Vietnam's economy is growing rapidly, so they needed to explore other options.
Yes.
Thus, renewables.
And coal not being reliable is something that should be underscored here. Coal is not reliable the way that it was 50 years ago. Of course, coal was never as reliable as it should have been, but that's another story. Okay, we have a picture here of Hurricane Katrina, and by the way, when that says...
see that picture?
No, we saw Sandy.
It was a different hurricane. It was the same picture.
Yeah, and this is also from Clean Technica. You have a title for this article.
NOAA.
Yes.
Which you're going to tell us what it is.
I will indeed, if you want me to.
Predicts another active Atlantic hurricane season.
Okay, NOAA, that's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Its Climate Prediction Center forecasts an above normal Atlantic hurricane season, though not at historic levels. It puts the chance of an above normal season at 60%, the chance of a near normal season at 30%, and the chance of a below normal season at 10%. So, we're expecting more hurricanes.
Well, for 2021, a likely range of 13 to 20 named storms.
Yes.
Of which 6 to 10 could become hurricanes.
Yes. Now, last year we had more than they could count. So they wound up. They ran out of names. They ran out of names. They had to use Greek letters. And I'm told that they're not going to use Greek letters in the future. They have a there's a 2-minute NOAA video summary at this article. Okay. NOAA is usually called NOAA, by the way.
NOAA, that's exactly right. And if you're ready, hurricane season officially starts on June 1st.
That's officially, except that
it's already started.
NOAA has said we're going to give our regular daily forecasts starting on the 15th of May this year. So I don't know how long the hurricane season is going to be officially starting on the 1st of June. Some people are saying that it's already officially
started already.
Yeah, it's already started on the 15th of May, and I don't know whether they're going to extend it into the fall longer. But whatever it is. We have a picture here of another picture of a Ford F-150 Lightning. And the woman
Looks
there...
like a normal truck to me, doesn't it?
It sure does. The woman there, by the way, is Linda Zhang, who is the chief engineer of the F-150, according to the article. And I'm saying she's chief engineer of F-150, not of F-150 Lightning. So so this is an important lady.
So she's the boss of basically this whole line of pickup trucks.
I believe that's correct, yes.
Uh-huh.
All right, so this is Clean Technica. What do you have for a title?
Ford F-150 Lightning gets 44,500 plus reservations in under 48 hours. There's a lot of interest in this truck, baby.
Wow, I'll tell you. That means they were getting these reservations at an average over that 2-day period of one in a little bit less than 4 seconds. And, anyway, Ford CEO Jim Farley has announced that Ford pulled in more than 44,500 reservations for the F-150 Lightning in fewer than 48 hours. I think that by many standards, that's a great achievement and an indication that the F-150 Lightning is doing exactly what it should be doing.
Well, there's a lot of pictures in this article.
Uh-huh.
There's so many pictures I couldn't download it.
Okay, well, let's see.
Well, let me give you a quick takeaway here.
Okay.
We need everyone to switch to electric transport.
We sure do.
Much quicker than it is happening.
Yes, that's true. And
they list 8 specific points why. And by the way, the article mentions what they call a frunk. This pickup truck has a trunk, but it's in the front.
Yes. And so you've got far more room in this truck than you would in a regular truck. Another thing,
it's lockable.
Yeah, and the F-150 Lightning comes with standard engines that are like in the 400 and 500 plus horsepower range. And I want to tell you, an electric motor is a lot more efficient than a gasoline-powered motor. So if you're talking about 450 horsepower, you're talking about what might be 600 horsepower from a gasoline engine. And these things have enormous power. They have enormous speed. They have enormous pulling potential. And, one other thing about them, and this is a standard feature, is that they have electric outlets on them. The larger battery vehicle can power an average American home for 3 days.
So you don't have to worry about outages, huh?
Well, not unless you're there longer than 3 days and there's no place nearby that you can charge your truck.
By the way, in this article, there's a picture of a Ford F-150 Lightning. In the trunk, there are power blocks that we just talked about.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, we have to go on to our next article, which is also from Clean Technica.
And we got another truck.
We have another truck, although
looking truck.
I got to tell you, Tom, would you drive that?
I'm not sure. It's a weird looking thing, isn't it?
I would drive. I'd be overjoyed to drive an F-150 Lightning, but I just can't. Why people see something in this truck, I don't know. But nevertheless,
hard to tell which direction it's even facing.
Well, it's facing to the left here. But nevertheless, this is what I would call probably the ugliest vehicle I've ever seen. But then, tastes.
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far, but it's certainly not far from beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. And this is from Clean Technica. Tell us what the title for this article is, Tom.
Tesla has over 1 million Cybertruck reservations with deposits.
That picture is of a vehicle that has brought in over 1 million reservations. It's going to take, they're going to start delivery of these things sometime this year, and I have no idea how long it's going to take to make up those reservations. But, I think if you signed up for a reservation now, you might have to expect to be waiting for it 3 or 4 years from now. That's just my guess. But
Well, this wait list indicates there is a demand for this vehicle.
It sure is. A crowdsourced reservation tracker shows that Tesla has a wait list of over 1 million Cybertruck orders. Drive Tesla Canada has reported this. Wow. The article pointed out that reservations for the Cybertruck were being placed every 2 seconds during weeks after its launch. So as nice as that Ford F-150 is, people seem to be going for this more. And by the way, this is a more expensive vehicle by a fair margin. So I don't know what to say about that.
Well, one of the things, just as an aside, the article is talking about full self-driving.
Yes.
That's the next thing that's coming. You won't need a driver.
It bothers me like mad, and I have to admit that I think it will probably save a lot of people's lives. But,
it has been proven that self-driving cars are safer.
It has, yes. I have no doubt that that's true. Okay, our next item has a picture of wind turbines. And
is that what they are?
I think it is. I don't think that's party favors. This is from Renews.
Windpower sets a new record in the UK.
UK wind energy set a record on the 21st of May, meeting almost 2/3 of the electricity demand for the UK, according to preliminary data from National Grid. Between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. on the 21st of May, which of course means you're talking about the lowest demand period of the day, wind power met 62.5% of all UK demand at 16.3 gigawatts. National Grid said the previous record was set in August of 2020. You can feel confident that this record is going to be broken again this year, because we're still in the spring and more turbines are being added. So,
well, last August, the previous record was wind energy made up almost 60% of demand. So
even the percentage is going up.
The percentage is going up. By the way, the National Grid ESO, that's the electricity system operator for Great Britain.
Right.
They run the grid.
Okay, we are up to Tuesday, May 25th, and we have a picture of a forest.
Looks like a bunch of trees to me.
It sure does. I don't see any wind turbines in there. And this item is from the BBC. So what do you have for a title?
The reason why wild forests beat plantations.
Yeah, interesting. Scientists at the Royal Botanical Gardens, Kew, in the UK, warned that tree planting was often being presented as an easy answer to the climate crisis and a way out for businesses to mitigate their carbon emissions. But it's not as simple as it seems. Natural forest regeneration may be a better alternative. And you know what? Forests, for all the carbon they draw down, do not draw down anything even close to the amount that's being drawn down by peat bogs on a acre by acre basis. Yeah,
that's a very interesting statement.
Peat bogs, I have read, draw down, and how much, drive around the countryside, how often do you see a peat bog? Peat bogs draw down as much carbon from the atmosphere and sequester it as all other vegetation combined. That's what I've read.
Well, there's a lot of vegetation in peat bogs, but it's all small stuff. It's not big trees.
That's right. But there's one other thing about peat bogs. That vegetation is constantly growing, which means that what is in there is being constantly pushed farther down in the water. And when it gets pushed down about 6 inches, it just dies and falls to the bottom. So it's constantly sequestering a large amount of carbon, because that's what's happening. And when it falls to the bottom, it doesn't rot. So,
well, this is a good in-depth article, and there's a lot of pictures on it.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that.
And this is a takeaway.
Yeah.
The wrong trees in the wrong place can cause considerably more damage than benefits.
Yes, there you go. So this, I think, forestry is going to wind up being an area of study that kids can get into these days and really make into a great career, because we're going to have more and more foresters who know what they're doing.
They're saying is they want the forest to grow. They don't want people planting forests. They want the forest to grow naturally.
That's right. And when you plant forests, you tend to have a plantation, which is a monoculture. And when you have a monoculture, it doesn't do as well as nature. And, it's like these huge plantations, you go out into the middle of them, and in some of them, there's no birds, there's no insects, nothing lives there except the forest.
Well, you go down to the Carolinas and you see some of these planted forests, and every tree is the same size.
Yeah. And they're planted in lines.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, our next item is from The Hill, and it shows a picture of a fire in Tasmania.
That's what it says.
And what do you have for title?
Settled enough. Climate science, skepticism, and prudence.
The body of climate science has survived extraordinary vetting and yielded conclusions recognized by competent climate scientists around the world as true beyond any reasonable doubt. Now, who vetted
again?
True beyond any reasonable doubt. And who vetted this? People who were paid to vet it by oil companies. They were trying to disprove that it was true, and they just didn't convince science. The possibility that they are true, the possibility that the climate projections the majority of science make are true, is too great to ignore with any level of prudence. It reminds me of Ronald Reagan, who was given the problem of what to do about the hole in the ozone layer. And he, should we ban these chemicals? And he looked at this and he said, well, there's an argument about whether these particular chemicals are causing the hole in the ozone layer. If they are not, then it'll cost us a little money to ban them, and for no good. But if they are, the consequences could be many, 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 many times what the cost of banning them would be. So
that's what this article says. The costs of adequate emission reduction and adaptation efforts over time will be much smaller than the cost of damages arising from failure to make those investments.
And another interesting thing about this is the investment that we make in addressing climate change is going to be made back in other things besides climate change. They'll be made back in improvements in people's health.
I'm just going to say it has health benefits.
It has health benefits. It means that the cost of energy is going to go down, not up. There's a bunch of things going on here that we should pay attention to. Again, we should go to our next item. Some of those funny things again, Tom.
Yeah, look at that. That's just amazing, isn't it? That's a nice picture. I like that picture.
I like this picture too, yeah. And this is from...
Well, among other things, they tell us that it's an offshore wind farm.
Yes, and this particular item comes from a publication called Offshore Engineer. And you have a title for this too, I'll betcha.
I do that. James Fisher Renewables nets offshore wind unexploded ordnance survey gig in France. That's pretty strange.
I wanted to see this included in our show because it tells you about something that
this is World War II bombs.
Yeah, the people are not going to think about this very often. Let me read the synopsis. James Fisher Renewables has been selected by the French grid operator Réseau de Trans. I'm not going to try. It's RT. It's RTE. Yeah. To identify unexploded ordnance along the export cable roofs for an offshore wind project. The 18-kilometer cable will be buried at depths of 5 to 35 meters. The problem is, this is off the coast of France in areas where there were fights going on during the Second World War. There were battles going on, and that means
bombs laying on the ground.
There's bombs down there, and so the grid operator who's going to be hiring people to put in the cable wants to make sure that if there are bombs down there, they they remove them before they dig 5 to 35 meters into the.
Well, that's just what I was going to tell you. This 18 kilometers is 10 miles. So
Yeah.
This is significant. And the 5 to 35 meters that they're burying these things is also significant. That's 15 to 110 feet.
Yes, and if
They're
they
burying some of these pretty deep.
Yeah, and if they hit a bomb on the way, they could wind up having an explosion that could wreck the cable, could wreck their equipment, could
ruin their whole day.
It could ruin their day. That's right. Certainly not make their dinner taste better.
Well, they're talking about the English Channel.
Yes.
Off the northwest coast of France.
Yes.
And they're talking about putting in 70 turbines, so they're not going to play games.
This is not insignificant. And if 70 turbines suddenly went down because some bomb went off that they had missed when they were putting this in, that would mean that they'd have months of work to do, trying to figure out what went wrong, where, and how.
Well, they're putting off. They're predicting the commissioning is scheduled for 2023, so this is going to happen quickly.
Yes. Okay, our next picture is a BYD
it's a bus, isn't it?
It sure is. And this is an article from Clean Technica.
BYD, build your dreams.
Yes.
Receives one of the largest electric bus orders in Italy. 50 of them.
BYD secured the largest electric bus order in Turin and one of the largest orders for electric buses in Italy. The company sold 50 more of its 40-foot low-floor model, a bestseller, to public transport operator Gruppo Torinese Trasporti. And I probably pronounced that wrong, but I had fun trying.
Well, if you got your hands moving with your mouth.
I didn't do it. You saw that, too. How do you see that across the internet while we're recording? I don't know. What do you got on this, Tom? Anything interesting?
Well, BYD has been supplying Turin with electric buses since 2017.
Yeah.
And up until now, they've completed over 4 million miles. So these buses are a success.
Oh, yeah. BYD is a company that they know what they're doing. I think they're probably the biggest electric bus manufacturer in the world.
I would not bet against that. They do a good job. But we've talked about them several times in the past.
Many times. They are a Chinese company, by the way, and they are something like 25% owned by Berkshire Hathaway.
Is that so?
Yeah, we're back to the what do they call them? The Prophet of Omaha or something like that. Okay. Our next item
another fire.
Is another fire. Now, that is not the fire that we're talking about because the fires that we're talking about haven't happened yet. But this also is an item.
Well, this is a real fire. I don't know which one it is, but it supposedly it happened in a national park.
Yes, that's right. This is from the National Park Service, and I forget where that fire came from. I don't think the fire was with the article. I think I went and found it separately. I might be wrong about that.
Well, the article says that climate drought, this is quite a metaphor. Climate drought is like covering land in gasoline ahead of fire season.
Well, I don't know that that's a metaphor, Tom. I think it's probably just simply true. Soil in the western United States is drier than at any time since 1895. And, we've had horrible fires out there, but it's drier than it was before them. At the opening of the 2020 wildfire season, 3% of California was in extreme or exceptional drought, and more than 4% of it burned. So the amount that burned was greater than the amount that was in extreme or exceptional drought. This year...
but what you're about to say really bothers me.
Oh, it's frightening. This year, more than 73% of the state faces similar drought conditions. This is going to be, very likely to be a difficult, kind of horrible year for firefighting in California.
Well, they got a problem that's going on, making it worse. The trees are dying because of the drought.
Yeah.
And they're turning forests into tinder boxes.
Yeah.
The trees are already dead.
Yeah, like pouring gasoline on the land.
Yeah.
No, and then what happens is the fire comes through and it burns the trees. And if you're effective enough in burning the trees and it's hot enough, you'll burn off a lot of the stuff that's on the surface of the forest. And then the wind comes along and blows that around. You don't have any cover for the forest at all. The soil gets eroded. And, then what do you do?
Well, the article says that the dice are loaded toward forest fires.
I guess.
And water shortages just couldn't be any worse.
Yeah. Okay. I guess our last article. Yes, our last article is this one. Oh, look at all of those. This
looks like it was taken from a beach, because I think those are
this was
people
taken
standing on the shore.
The guy who took this photograph, his name is Carl Raw, apparently, at least that's how he identifies himself, said that this particular wind farm was close to his home. And he loved going down to the beach and watching the turbines because he just found it so relaxing. And he wanted to share this photograph with people so that they would understand how beautiful it was. Anyway, this is from Renews. What do you have for a title?
U.S. to lease a California offshore wind zone.
The Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, or BOEM as it's called, and the Department of Defense have reached an agreement to lease 399 square miles off California's central coast.
Why did they say 400?
I don't know. Why didn't they do 400 instead of 399 for offshore wind development? BOEM is working with other federal agencies on areas that could be impacted by leasing activities. So they've already got approval between the federal organizations on almost 400 square miles. They're going after more. The 400 square miles is off the coast of California, but I can tell you they're looking for this everywhere on the West Coast.
Oh, they are. They've chosen for the purpose of this article 2 sites.
Yeah.
They got one called Morro Bay, which is halfway between L.A. and San Francisco. And that's going to have 3 gigawatts of offshore wind, so that ain't too shabby.
No, it's not.
And then another site that they've already chosen is Eureka. It's Humboldt County near the Oregon border.
So these are rather far apart, which means that the likelihood...
Oh, they are. They couldn't be farther apart and still be in California.
And the likelihood of both of them being down because of low wind at the same time is
It's about impossible.
Yeah. The wind turbines spend a lot more time going than most people realize. The wind farms go at about 98% of the time they're actually generating electricity. Now, their offshore wind capacity factor is more like 50%. It's not because they're going 50% of the time. It's because most of the time their output is only about 50% of the nameplate capacity. But the chance of both of these wind farms being just off
at the same time
is really, really, really remote. And, obviously you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. So there's lots of solar in California. There's going to be some geothermal behind it. There's hydro, which hopefully they're going to have enough rain to support. And there's other sources of electricity.
Little pump storage here and there, some batteries.
Yeah. That's what they do.
Well, a reason why this hasn't been done already is because water depths off the West Coast are generally considered too great for fixed foundation turbines.
Absolutely. I'm glad you said that.
But they've solved that with floating wind projects, which are now starting to be popping up all over the place.
Right.
Because they figured out how to do it.
It took a while to figure out. I think people don't realize how big those turbines are, but I'm seeing the masts weighing 1,700 tons, and stuff like that. And then the nacelles having magnets in them that weigh 2,000 tons.
These are big, baby.
These things they're big.
This is not what you put up in your backyard.
Not unless you've got a very big backyard. If you've got a backyard the size of some county in Texas, you might get away with it. Okay, that is the end of our show. We have a sign here saying "Have a perfectly lovely week." I'm sorry it's boring. I forgot to put my special note in there to have an incredibly significantly important week or something like that. Anyway, there you have it. Tom and I are waving goodbye. I swear it's
It was
true.
an interesting show. We got some interesting stuff coming up.
The F-150 and the other things that went on, the business of the G7 agreeing. This is very big.
Well, I think you're going to be hearing a lot about that F-150 because it's too good of a vehicle to overlook.
Yeah,
it's competitively
absolutely
priced. It's faster than hell.
Well, it costs more than a car with an internal combustion F-150 with an internal combustion engine, but you have to remember, it's got more backup power than 3 Tesla Powerwalls, and they would cost $5,000 a piece. So this is we're in a different league here.
And you can charge it at home.
Yeah, we have to say goodbye. We would love to keep talking, but this is the end. So we'll see you. We'll have you see us. We will see you. I don't think we'll see you, actually. But we will hope that you're around next week. Come back. Bye-bye.
Adios, everybody.